All right, it's time to get real. Let's talk about the downside of a carnivore diet. Stay tuned. Day 39. What was my weight? Still holding steady at 280. My diet today was a little. I finished off a little bit of brisket. I had some ground meat, ground beef, and some eggs, and that's it. I feel pretty good. I don't think I'll eat dinner. That was at about 12:30 today. But anyways, it was time. It's time to get real because there are some downsides to the carnivore diet, and I want to kind of go over them. I know that most people will tell you the pros first, but that's tomorrow's video. That's what I want to do for the last two videos. Today will be cons, and then tomorrow will be pros of the carnivore diet. And the reason why I'm starting with the cons is because I want to be real with you, and I want you to realize that there are going to be struggles. It's not like, you hear, look, these influencers, these carnivore influencers, they love to tell you that they feel like super great and Superman and and it's like the best thing ever, and what happens is that people try it for 30 days and they don't feel good, they don't feel super, in fact, it might make them a little bit nauseous, their gut gets kind of screwed up and from what they're used to, and then they get off of it because they're not feeling the same things everybody else is. And you have to realize that some of these influencers are paid to tell you what they believe, and I'm not getting paid. I'm going to tell you what I believe, but my intention is to help people that this might be able to help. Now, in my opinion, the transition to carnivore should be an easier one, depending on what your current diet is. My transition was paleo, then keto, but without all the crap, the keto crap. I did get into a little bit of dirty keto. We could talk about what's the difference on that on another video. And then I transitioned to clean keto, and that's when I really saw the real big weight loss. And then the first carnivore challenge I went on, too many processed meats. I wasn't paying attention to the ingredients. And this time it's all clean ingredients for the most part. I would say that I've probably been about 97% behaved when it comes to other ingredients besides meat, water, and salt, and some spices and coffee, right? But I've made some notes, and let's go over them. There's 9 of these, right? So bear with me. The first con: your reality is going to get changed. Everything that you believed and knew about food goes out the window, and you're going to completely get a whole different perspective when it's kind of like, you've heard of functioning alcoholics. In other words, they can do their day-to-days, they can work their job, they can have their events, but they drink so heavy that 1 or 2 or 3 beers, they don't realize what that does to them. And that's kind of what happens, is you develop a tolerance. So once you clean up your diet by eating nothing but clean meat, what happens is now when you reintroduce these things, you realize just how sick they are. It's kind of like cigarette smoking. If you go without cigarette smoking for a while after you quit and then you go back, well, that first cigarette, man, that'll make you sick. It's kind of the same thing. Your body's developed a tolerance. And what that does is it completely shifts your reality of how you look at food, how you think of food. Things that you used to enjoy are horrible for you. And so when you walk into a convenience store and realize that 95% of it is poison, meant to take your money, um, it's a harsh reality to accept. So that's an adjustment you're going to have to make. Number two, because of that, and these are all related pretty much, but because of that, what's going to happen is you're going to become, number two is social outcast. You're going to become a social outcast. You're going to be the odd guy at the party who's only eating a steak or a hamburger with no bun. You're going to be and some people will treat you like a freak of nature. Every time I talk to certain friends, it's all they bring up. Like they have nothing else to talk about. So how's your carnivore thing going? And that's fine if they want to learn about it, but it might make me an object of ridicule. It might make me, they might be making a bigger deal out of it than what it really is. And and what's interesting is that when you look at the chemicals and the compounds that are in these foods, no one will say anything about that. No one will, if you're indulging in Reese's Pieces and someone's not, well, you don't want to be confronted with that. So you either make fun of it or you completely dismiss it. And so you become a social outcast. Dinners will be different. Social events will be different. Like every time one of our drivers comes through town, we usually try to do lunch or dinner, and it changes that. Like I'll still do that, but I have to make huge adjustments. And if people aren't watching their diet, they become kind of self-conscious around me. Even though I'm not preaching to them, even though I'm not telling anything, they're like, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm ordering only meat. Well, that's weird. And then they look at their plate and they feel bad about it. So it's a bit of a social adjustment for not just your friends, but your family as well. And like, for example, if your family likes to go get ice cream every Friday, and you don't partake in that kind of makes it feel like you're missing out on family time, and the family might take offense to that or think, well, dad's being really, or dad or mom is being really, difficult. Why can't they just enjoy some ice cream with us? And that's tough. That's tough. Brings me to number three, depression. Now, going keto and carnivore has helped my depression tremendously. However, a new kind of depression kind of kicks in when you go into a grocery store and there's all these things that are meant to entice you, all these things that you realize their intention is only to make money off of you, off of your addiction. It's depressing to see that. It's kind of like, when you work as a counselor or, spend a day in family court, and you'll see some pretty depressing things. And so there's a low line, little bit of depression. You become a little bit jaded about things. And it's going to cause a readjustment because your hormones are being all jacked around, and we'll get more into that here later. Number four, you need to plan and think ahead on your meals. And that's difficult. Most people can't plan ahead their whole day. And as if you're a truck driver watching this, it's definitely hard to plan because you don't know when the shipper receiver is gonna keep you longer than you need. So you got to depend on convenience food, or you don't know if all of a sudden your dispatcher says, hey, you got to drive 10 hours now, and have time to cook like you wanted to. And so you have to plan ahead. You have to plan for the worst case scenarios. You have to plan for emergencies. And it becomes a little bit more difficult than just having a bunch of non-perishables in your cabinet and just picking something and grabbing that and calling it a meal. Like ramen noodle. Ramen noodle was always a good quick meal. If I couldn't cook anything, just throw it in hot water for a couple of minutes and boom, it's done, right? That kind of goes out the window. And so planning ahead, a lot of people don't know how to plan ahead, or they can't plan ahead, or they're too stressed out to plan ahead. And I'm like, failing the plan is planning to fail kind of a guy, because I've lived the other side and it's not pretty. The cost. Now, a lot of people bring up the cost of carnivore. And again, when you go to these YouTube influencers and they're eating ribeyes all the time and like Steak and Butter Gal, I would like to see her real grocery bill. And she has a great channel, but see, she's at an extreme, right? At first it's going to seem like it's expensive, but then once you realize how much your eating windows slow down and you're off medications, or you're able to decrease medications, even little things like not taking as much ibuprofen, or taking less supplements, or you're able to take your metformin and cut it in half, or your blood pressure medicine and cut it in half after your weight loss. At the end of the day, you're actually saving money. And also, when you're not hungry as often, you're not counting on convenience food as often, which that will save you money, especially in this post-COVID world where everything is super expensive. And so you don't have to eat ribeyes every night. You don't have to eat prime rib every night. Ground beef does just as good. You get the eggs you can afford. You get the meat that you can afford. Splurge every now and then. Have some variety. And there's plenty of variety, things like shrimp, fish, chicken, pork, if your religion allows you. And just spice it up. Just put some variety into it. And that'll help keep the cost down. Maybe you do steaks once a week and hamburger the rest of the time with some fish and shrimp thrown in. So at first the cost might seem high, but once it's kind of like when you start a business. You got all these upfront costs, and then it starts to smooth out. And it's kind of like that. You're making this investment, and then it smooths out. Next thing you know, the first $200 that you spend on food, the first time it lasts a week. Then you get better about spending, and then the next time it lasts, that $200 lasts 2 weeks. And next thing you know, you might be spending $60 a week on food for yourself, and you feel completely nourished, you feel completely full, and the weight is melting off like crazy. Individual results may vary, okay? Clothes shopping. I hate clothes shopping. I like buying t-shirts. But like today, there was a t-shirt I saw, this Instagram ad, it reeled me in. It did its job. It got me to want to buy a t-shirt, even though I've got like 68 t-shirts. But they didn't have my size, right? And as time goes on, they're going to start having more of your size. Next thing you know, if you're a huge person, you go in the Walmart, now you can fit in those clothes. But the downside is now you got to go clothes shopping. Now you got to try on clothes, and that could be expensive. But if you give your old clothes to the homeless, or to a donation, or to a charity, then they benefit from it. So I guess there's a positive side to that. Now, number 7 is you lose convenience to a degree. If I was driving a truck and let's say I'm home every weekend, I would take that grill and I would cook about 20 burgers at once. And then I put them in the truck, put half of them in the freezer, the other half, so I can eat them whenever I want. So if I don't have time to cook, I've got them in the reserves. All I got to do is nuke them for a minute, and we're good to go. Going into convenience stores, there's barely anything that you'll want to eat. You can eat whatever you want, but in order to maximize the benefits, you want to eat as clean as possible. And there really isn't a whole lot in a convenience store. People tell me, people that don't drive trucks, and I experienced this before I started driving, when you go on a road trip, what do? You go to the convenience store, you buy all the cool stuff and all the food that you normally wouldn't eat at home. And what happens? You feel tired, you feel blah, you feel bloated, you feel like you've gained 10 pounds. There's a reason for that. Because you're entrenching yourself in this decadence that really isn't meant for everyday consumption. But it's great in a pinch. And that's why a lot of truck drivers aren't healthy, is because you're literally living off convenience food. The old school restaurants are all gone. They're replaced with these chains like IHOP and Denny's, and if you're even lucky, most of them are fast food like McDonald's or Taco Bell or Popeye's Chicken. Ask me how I know. I've always mentioned that. So that's where that planning ahead comes in, because you're going to lose some convenience. But there are strategies for that. For example, the Petro, the Iron Skillet, they have, if they still have one, they have the breakfast buffet. Now, even though I wasn't hungry, I would go into and do the breakfast buffet to go, and it costs about $10. And I would get nothing but the bird patties, sausage, bacon, and eggs. Put it in the container, throw it in the fridge, and that would be my meal for the day. So buffets can help the convenience, because then you can pick and choose the foods, as long as you got a way to heat them up. Even if you don't, like if you got a fridge or a cooler in your truck, put them in the cooler, and then when you get to the truck stop, use our microwave real quick and you should be good to go. But you do lose convenience. You do lose the ability to go in, I'm gonna grab a couple hot dog rollers, I'm gonna grab a couple of those Love's tacos, I love those things, and a bag of chips, and I'm good to go. And you're gonna probably try to avoid that if you can. Same thing with if I'm gonna get a burger without a bun. Well, if you're in a hurry and you got to drive, well, that's kind of hard to do because it's all greasy and your steering wheel is all gross, and so you got to sit there and eat it. So now, number 8 will be controversial. Your libido goes up. Now you're probably sitting there, now dang, Steve, how is that a con? Here's the deal. So studies have shown, and I've experienced this myself, that your testosterone levels go up if you're a male on the carnivore diet, especially if you're eating predominantly red meat. And what that's going to do is it's going to cause some hormonal changes. So if you're a younger person, younger than me, and your libido kind of struggles a little bit, all of a sudden it's going to get a little bit more increased. The bad news is if you're single, what are you going to do about it? Good luck to you. If you're married, well, your spouse is going to have to keep up. Luckily, I don't have that problem, but I have no complaints. But for the most part, people might see that as a bad thing. And last but not least, you're going to feel like you're limited, but you're not. You're going to have all this free time by not cooking and prepping meals all the time. And so you're going to sit there and you're going to think, man, I feel pretty damn good. I'm going to go for a walk. Or I'm going to read a book. Or I'm going to go for a walk listening to an audiobook. I'm going to get away from the internet more. And so you gain all this free time because, number one, you're not spending all this time prepping meals and obsessing about food. And then number two, you're off the internet less because your body and mind are going to desire more than just the dopamine hits of TikTok and Discord. So you'll have to find, the con is now you got to find something to fill this free time with. And that's it. So look, these results might vary individually for you. This is just what I've experienced. And tomorrow I'm going to reveal the pros. And look, here's a disclaimer. This is not a be-all end-all diet for some people. This way of eating requires adjustment and paying attention. It requires some work. And if you're willing to put in the work, you can become healthier. Maybe it's not carnivore, maybe it's just meat-based where you still have some fruits and some veggies, or ketovore where you're predominantly eating meat with some vegetables thrown in here and there, as long as they don't disrupt your gut. Or maybe you just go paleo and you just, if it didn't have a mom or come out of the ground, you don't eat it. And with very, very, very little ingredients and preservatives and all that crap. Whatever works for you. And some people can handle the cold turkey punch, and other people need to kind of ease into it. Regardless, it doesn't matter. It's progress, not perfection. And I am not perfect by no means. And I think that's why I have trouble getting people on board sometimes, is because, here I am, I'm still 280, right, on my weight. I'm still an overweight, fat-looking dude. And here I am, who are you to lecture me about my health? And I'm trying not to lecture, but it might come across because I have a very brash, way of talking sometimes. Tomorrow will be the cool day. Tomorrow will be day 40. And we're going to go over the pros. And as you're going to see, they're very closely related to the cons. So, thanks for watching. Strength for today, hope for tomorrow, progress, not perfection.
What are you doing, Diesel? Are you a doggy? Oh. Good dog.